Welcome everybody to Meet Your Neighbors Brantford. Today we're in the studios of BCTV itself. Marge isn't with us, she's unavailable, but I am here as the lone wolf interviewer, and I'd like you to meet our interesting, very interesting and unique duo. This is a team I'd like to show, and it is Gracie and Louis Siegel.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to Meet Your Neighbors Brantford. So, Lou, I take it you're going to be the spokesperson for this group?
We hear from Gracie, she won't need a microphone.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. I'm sure of that. So, Gracie, I can't help but notice she's really a beautiful animal. And is she, what breed is she?
They call them golden doodles. They're half standard poodle, which is a dog her size, not the little toy poodles, yes, and golden retrievers. Wow. She's first generation.
So golden doodles, they seem to be very popular today. Golden doodles, labradoodles. So what do you feel makes them so popular? Well,
the shedding issue. Most of these dogs don't shed.
Yeah, I know. I was petting her earlier, and not a hair. And I shed more than she does.
There you go. It's a little obvious too. Most of the dogs don't shed. I happen to have a young one. Gracie's it was just 11. I have one that's 16 months, Gabby, and she looks like a golden retriever and sheds like a golden retriever. So
oh, I see.
It's all in the genetic breakdown.
Oh, that's very interesting. So I'm going to ask something about yourself. So you told us that you retired from a business that you yourself created over 40 years ago?
Right. And
can you tell us briefly what that business was?
I was in business with a relative, and we did insurance risk control. That's basically safety work and evaluations of risk for commercial insurance carriers.
I see.
So everything from a decent-sized house to, we worked on the Big Dig project in terms of workers' comp safety and general liability to people surrounding the project.
Whoa. So busy with
and everything in between.
Busy with
that. A lot
of
factory work, a lot of commercial buildings.
Wow. And now that you're retired, you teamed up with Gracie to do what?
Hey, Gracie is a therapy dog. So we started out at the Yale Medical School library, and we were there on a weekly basis, and we got a visit from a doctor from Yale New Haven Hospital. She asked me to come over and start a program just for the staff, the doctors and the nurses. That was an every other week project. So they also got me into visiting patients on the alternating weeks. Then HR followed me around, saw how effective it was. So now when we go, we just visit everybody. So they either have lists of people to visit, but what really impresses me is when I get onto a floor in the hospital. We're not allowed everywhere in the building, but I do get to all 4 towers. And the nurses or doctors will ask me to go into other rooms of patients that they know that might be interested, and they'll go and ask first. But it shows that the contact that they have, and they're paying attention.
I see, yeah. And, so they asked you, that's how it became initiated. It wasn't that Gracie said, hey, let's go out and do something for a living while you're retired.
Well, it's not a living, we're volunteers.
Well, yeah, no remuneration.
Right, my wife basically threw me out of the house. I was retired and she wasn't, and said, I'm joking. Yeah, so we started there, and then somebody came over from the nursing school, and we go there, and somebody came over from the School of Public Health, and we go there. In between all of that, my wife was in her line of work, had somebody in her group that when they found out Gracie passed her exam, turned out he had been the middle school principal at Sandy Hook. He belonged to this organization that I belong to called K9 First Responders.
I see.
And they go to crisis situations.
Well, I'm going to ask you more about that soon, but I'm
Right.
curious about the part, and I'm very curious about that, the part where you visit patients. I'd like to delve a little more into that. When you visit patients, you must have some unique experiences. Can you recall some of those and relate some of those to us?
I do. A lot of times people are very interested in seeing the dog. They're in good enough shape, I'll say, that they are very aware and they love the dog coming in, and they could either reach it, pet it, or I'll lift the front of her up. They'll have relatives or visitors in there who are just as dog crazy, and it lifts everybody's spirits. You can see it work. There are other situations where, specifically when the nursing staff or the doctors ask me to go in there, where the people are in rough shape, and it's a much slower process. I have to work pretty much one-on-one with the patient. Sometimes there's a nurse standing by just to help. But it's, I find it very rewarding, because I could, even in those situations, you can see the patient is appreciative of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not, I sign a lot of paperwork, I'd rather not get into too specific, but I do go to all four wings of the hospital, and there are days I come back a little shaken from what I was dealing with. Yeah, I see a lot.
I could imagine too that it's so rewarding to these people who have been in the hospital for a while, those especially, who may have dogs at home or had dogs in the past, and find somebody who's rather beautiful and gentle. And
yes, I hear it continuously. I miss my dog. Well, they either had previously had a dog, or they've been there for 5 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they miss their dog. I hear a lot of that. I hear the doctors and the nurses, I'll go into a room when they're at their computers after rounds, and I'll open the door and say, anybody need a dog hug? And they literally come crazed over her. And I hear, this is the best part of my day. Oh, I really needed this today.
Yeah.
And they're petting the dog. And I walk around, the nurses, they'll text each other, Gracie's on the floor. And they'll come over, and I hear the same thing from them. I really needed this today.
They all want to share.
Yep.
So you also, when Marge and I first interviewed you, you mentioned about a room that you went into where there was a gentleman who was comatose, and how Gracie got in there with him.
That was at a nursing home.
Ah.
I wouldn't say he was comatose, he was
out of it.
Non-active. And I'd been there for multiple weeks in a row, and his wife was always there. And one day, Gracie came up to him, and for some reason, she stuck her head under his arm, and he started to laugh.
Oh, my.
And hadn't heard a word out of him in a month or two, once a week.
Right.
Not a word. And on multiple, we were in a room with 20 people, so the dog passed him more than once, or stopped at him more than once each visit. And the people working there just had tears in their eyes, and his wife.
Oh.
It was his first communication he probably made.
Wow. So
however long.
Not only did he respond, but he responded with joy, and something that nobody has seen from him in a while.
Right.
Wow. So it's psychological boosting. Psychologically, it boosts the patients.
Right, it lowers blood pressure. All the good things go on in your body that reduce your blood pressure, and you just see the smiles on their faces. You hear the reaction. People at the hospital, you have the greatest job. Everybody must be happy to see you.
Yeah.
Then I tell them, no one knows my name. Everybody knows Gracie.
Yeah.
You know, 1 in 100 people will ask me how I'm doing. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but you're enjoying it too.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
Yeah. So aside from hospitals, nursing homes, hospice. You've been to those places. What other types of facilities do you take Gracie to?
Occasionally, with the other group, there have been situations in. I haven't traveled out of the state for that.
Oh, all right.
The group has traveled nationwide, but I've been to Guilford after the accidental shooting of the kid in high school. We went to the high school for 2 or 3 days. I've been in elementary schools where a favorite teacher had died, and it was the day of the funeral, so half the teachers were left behind, and the students were upset, and our group, I was there with another person, with her dog.
So it's mostly to these traumatic events that have occurred,
right?
And you go there.
Funerals, wakes, things like that, and then there's events where good stuff's going on, and they just want us to show up to make it even better.
So what is the organization?
It's called K9 First Responders. It started at the time of Sandy Hook. Brad Cole, who started the organization, still runs it. He lives in Milford. After the shooting in Sandy Hook, within days, he went up with his dog, and all the activity was taking place at the middle school. The shooting took place at the elementary school. So he went to the middle school, and he found 15, 20 other people who showed up with their dogs, and it was chaotic from standpoint of they were there for months, so it needed to be organized. So he sat down with the principal and he organized it. And then a short time later, he decided this is something he could continue doing. He was a retired police officer, and he put the organization together. And there's approximately 30 members. Everybody's got their own dog. We're in Connecticut, Massachusetts, got some people down in Maryland area. And they've traveled after the Boston Marathon bombing. What the group does, they go to the peer groups of the first responders within 48, 72 hours after an incident. So that's police department, fire department, ambulance services, occasionally emergency rooms. And they go to those meetings. And those meetings, they're traumatized also of what they've seen. And, you know, it could be big policemen, anything. It's nothing wrong with petting a dog. And they won't be in the group, and they'll be off somewhere, and the dog seems to know, and they meet up, and they pet the dog, and it gets them into the group and talking. Again, it's the blood pressure thing and the calming nature of people petting a dog. And it's in the literature, it's proven medically, it's effective, and now it's spreading all across the nation. There are programs in schools where kids who have trouble reading go into the library in school, and there's a dog there, and they read to the dog. And it works, and there's hospitals all over the country starting to get their own dogs. There's police departments getting their own dogs, besides the police dogs, the working dogs. And it's, I see it working. I mean, I see it every time I go out. Saw it today where I was at the nursing school. There are people lying on the floor with the dog.
So you were there for the nurses or for the
nursing students?
The nursing students, right. Wow.
And we're real busy around test time.
Oh, so they're stressed out. That's okay.
They are also, a place like Yale, they're from both the medical school and nursing school, they're from all over the world. And, I have a dog, even if they're from another part of the state, they miss their dogs.
So now you and Gracie had to be trained, certified.
Right.
What was your training?
She was 7 when I started, and she was well-behaved. She loves people. I trained her to behave. And there's a group called Pet Partners, and they've got an operation in Hamden. They're a nationwide operation. And there's a site, you can bring your dog there, and they go through weeks of training. She was already trained, but I went to the classes. And then there's a test they give. And Gracie passed with flying colors and was given the highest rating, which was we're so proud of her. And she, so we were in, and so we were able to go to schools and nursing homes, and et cetera. With this group, because of the nature of the sites they go to, I had to go through 40 hours of psychological first aid training. And then that test was a lot, for the dog, was a lot more difficult. We spent an hour going through New Haven, and they had actors portraying different characters in the street, carrying on, and it's much more stressful on the dog. And again, the comment was, I didn't have to be there. She could have passed the test without me.
So she proved herself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
She's really good.
So what have you done so far with the organization, with K9, the emergency group?
Well, for a while I was their fundraiser, because I hadn't taken the classes when she first passed. She literally passed. On the next day, my wife had this meeting, which is when the gentleman, Jay, talked to her about the K9 group. He had been, if I didn't mention it before, he had been the principal at the middle school.
All right.
And he was new to my wife's group, and he filled her in on what went on there, and they called me, and I did that for them for a while. So I've gone to, again, to funerals. I was a state policeman up in Tallinn, who was in a car accident, passed away, and 1,000 police showed up at for the funeral and the wake, 2-day event up at the football stadium in East Hartford. Yes. I've gone to schools, as I explained before, to Guilford and a couple of elementary schools.
And you said, I think, that you went to last year to the Boston Marathon?
Right. They invite us every year to come back, and we either hang out at the Prudential Center, which seems to be the crossroads of the entire event.
Right.
It's a huge place, and there come thousands of people coming from 4 directions. And I was shuttling. We were stationed about a mile away at a hotel that was the main hotel for the event. A lot of runners and families were ending up back there. And of course, it was a rainy day, so got to get dry dogs to places, and try getting a 150-pound dog into an Uber.
So you were serving in a logistics function.
Right.
So that
was another training I went through with them. I
think you said there were 8 dogs that were at that event, and their handlers, and you had to move them around?
Right.
I see.
Back and forth.
Yeah, well, that's very important function. I used to do that with Red Cross years ago. Marge and I were volunteers there. Right.
We've even been in Brantford for a couple of incidents that occurred. I probably don't want to get into it here, but.
Okay. And so, I don't. There's something I know what I was thinking of, a little what if situation that we heard you mention, and that has something to do with a bulldog. So I hope the public doesn't mind. I hope people from Yale don't mind talking about this, but I think Gracie deserves a little credit here for all that she's done for Yale and for the patients, really. So wouldn't it be neat if Gracie...
Okay. So wherever I take her, everybody's commenting on how beautiful, how pretty she is. And I take some of the contents when they yell at, oh, how pretty. And I say, thanks, I try. But everybody's remarking on what she looks like. So at the medical school, I've been giving them little nudges on how, the bulldog, not the prettiest of the dog breeds. And perhaps we could start some kind of thing. So they have posters they put out when Gracie's going to appear on the day she's coming. And they had given me one, and I went out. There were buses and vans and everyone that's a Yale bus or van's got the bulldog in one of the glass windows. And I went out and covered the bulldog with Gracie's poster, and I emailed it to all my contacts at the different schools in the hospital. and I started a movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I told them that the hockey team and the basketball team were willing to be the fighting golden doodles, but we'll see how that goes.
I'm not sure.
I've talked to some Yale graduates. They're horrified by the thought of that.
So, you know, I just thought of another thing. In Brantford, we have medical vehicles that take people to doctor's appointments, and I'll bet you some of the patients that Gracie has seen have used that service too. And maybe they'd be considerate to put her, someday, her picture on there to honor Gracie for all she's done for people with medical issues.
Just a little clarification, she's not the only dog at the hospital.
Yeah.
There are
many.
Not many, but probably close to one a day.
Ah.
They have a bigger group, they told me, as on their list, but the names that I see, it's the same 5, 6, 7 people.
Oh, well, okay, then I have another question here. So if Gracie someday decides, you know, I think I'll take it a little easier. I mean, look how hard she's working. No, she really gets up and she's beautiful. She's so alert when but she's had a busy day today.
Yes, yeah.
She's had a busy day. She already worked this afternoon. But when she is ready, who might be available to follow in her paw prints?
16-month-old Gabby.
Gabby.
Who's also a golden doodle that doesn't look like a golden doodle. And she looks like a golden retriever. She's a great dog, lovable, the whole thing, except people who've had retrievers will understand that they don't calm down right away. Even Gracie was very active until she was 3, 4, 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Gabby is way too young. She's just active. We go to the supply pond here. Gracie and I will do 1.5 miles, and Gabby's doing 3 miles at 100 miles an hour. Yeah. So she's a great dog. She listens, all that, but she needs to chill.
How long do you think that might take?
Anywhere from next week to 3 years from now.
Wow. So, you know, there is a clip that we have of the effort, the K9 group that goes out and responds to these situations. Maybe we should show that clip now.
Right, this is a short clip. There's a 35-minute documentary that won the New Haven Documentary Award a year ago. Oh. This is just a short clip.
So we'll ask Rob Baldo if he could run that. He's our studio person here.
Samantha was a Sandy Hook Elementary School student. After what happened in December of 2012, she didn't want to leave the house.
The city of Milford was met by a tragedy at Jonathan Law High School. A very popular student was tragically killed.
We're with the men and women of the Las Vegas Fire Department and American Medical Response at the worst times of their lives.
My mother took me to school, which had been set up as a gathering place for our community. Spartacus was a giant of a dog with big dark eyes that looked directly into mine and seemed to read my heart. In my opinion, having the dog teams there was the single most important element in helping our school recover.
I saw kids who don't talk to anyone stop every single morning in front of myself and Brad and his team to talk to those dogs every day.
And just having that calming presence of the dogs there, I think was the thing that made it better in the immediate aftermath. You have this connection that I don't think you can make with a human.
The dog was the key to start a healing process for a person. And If you had read that to me in a book, I would have never believed it.
Wow, so we noticed some of the local responders who were there.
Even a shot there of firemen in town here. The website, if anybody's interested, is K9FR, first responders, K9FR.org. And there's a little longer video on that. And again, there's a 35-minute one that we show at special events.
That's wonderful. So, Lou, I'd like to thank you for all, and shake your hand here, for all that you've done and for all that you're doing for so many people within our region and even beyond. And also to thank Gracie. Gracie, I would shake your paw, but I'll just give you a little scratch there. Thank you for all you've done and do. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in on behalf of Marge, myself, Joe Naylor, and BCTV. And I got to give a plug for Rob, who does our editing and everything. And we trust that everybody will have safe and joyous holidays until we return next on Meet Your Neighbors Brantford. So thank you and goodbye.